Anybody got any disclosures of interest?
Councillor McInerney.
Yes, Councillor McInerney.
Item 16.7, I own a dog.
Right. Any further disclosures of interest? If not, we go down to item 3 on our agenda, and it is public forums. And I believe there's going to be two speaking at the same time, or not at the same time, but presenting at the same time. So we can go to the first ones, and they're Jill Watson.
No. No.
Beth Clark.
Beth Clark first.
Right, you're on.
Hello, I'm Beth Clark. Thank you for making the arrangements so that we are able to inform you all of our great disappointment that this proposal has even been considered. It has come to our attention that the majority of councillors did not really know what they were voting for at the November and March meeting, as when contacted said they did not know anything about the proposal. Have you since read the notice in the Border Chronicle and on the sign on Allotment 39 Edward Street, Bordertown, advising the public of the proposed land classification? More importantly, did you all receive and read a copy of the Community Land Revocation, Allotment 39 Edward Street, Bordertown, Section 194 Consultation Report, March the 20th? That was sent to nearby residents. There has been a number of letters and petitions submitted prior to 5 p.m. Wednesday, the 8th of April. Have all councillors had the opportunity to read a copy of these prior to us addressing you today? If you'd answered no to any of these points, I would sincerely hope that you would not support the proposal to revoke the land classification. Should you not have had the opportunity to read these documents, you may not be aware this land was originally bequeathed to the Tatiara District Council as a reserve. The subject land is currently classified as community land, which restricts what can happen on the site. To facilitate the use of the site for residential purposes, Council must first seek revocation of community land status. May I leave you with the thought that when making a valuable gift to the community, it may not end up being for what you had intended. Thank you, and please leave our parklands alone.
Thanks, Bev. Any questions to Bev by any of the members? Jamie Jackson.
I was just going to make a comment, really. Realising this is being recorded, along the lines of, I think times are sort of changing. It's not that many years ago we had only 8-ton trucks on road, and now we've got E-triples and et cetera. We used to send telegrams, and now we're on the internet and live streaming. And unfortunately, we've just got to deal with changing times that are not foreseen at the particular time that requests and that are made. But certainly in sympathy with everybody's point of view out there on this current subject.
Thank you, Jamie. I didn't tell all the councillors this is being recorded live across Australia. So if anybody wants to tune in, they can hear this. And I think you heed Anna's warning about what you can say and how much you say. Thank you. Now, Speaker.
Just to clarify, sorry, it is being recorded. We are not yet able to live stream, so it will go up as soon as the meeting is finished and the recording is finished.
Right.
Mayor, can I just ask a question? Is there any chance of keeping these photos on our screen all the time? Because all I've got the agenda and I can't really see everyone until I just keep tapping it. That's better if we can keep that up.
Yep.
Have you got an agenda in front of you now, though?
Yes, I've got one on my iPad.
But we're only on forum anyway, Graham. So,
That's right.
Mayor, so.
Oh, well, we'll just have to see where we go, but we've got to put minutes up on the screen as well too, so we can't keep these 4 photos here all the time. Right, next speaker. Who would like to speak next?
Yeah, I will. My name's Mitchell Darlitz, and I purchased 21 Edward Street back in 2013. And thank you for the correspondence informing me on the proposal to revoke the community land, allotment 39 Edward Street. When I purchased this property, it was my understanding that the land in question would remain community land. This was very important. This was a very important aspect to me in choosing this area to purchase and live. The decision made 7 years ago to purchase so close to this reserve is of more importance now after recently moving back to the district, just renovated, and having a young family of my own to utilise this community land. It is also my understanding and knowledge that in recent years, at least 9 occupants with young families or with the intention of, in the near future, have purchased properties within the affected area. The original owner of this land, Mrs. Selina May Miles, vested this land to the Tatiara District Council on the understanding that the said land would be dedicated as a reserve. Therefore, as Bordertown has many vacant allotments, all zoned residential, I propose to revoke this community land. Thank you again, but I strongly disagree with the above proposal.
Right. Any questions to Mitch? If not, thanks very much, Mitch. We'll take all those things on board. Now, next speaker, please. Who we got first?
Okay, I'm speaking, Jill Watson. I share the concerns of my fellow residents in the vicinity of Edward Street regarding the plan to build on what is, at present, a pleasant open space. When people decide to buy a house, they do so with the expectation that their surroundings will remain as they are unless otherwise stated at the time of purchase. The local residents are understandably concerned and upset about the possible revocation of this land. I am concerned that this sets a precedent. If this goes ahead, will council then at any time in the future be able to resume other public parkland in the town and dispose of it as they wish? If this is the case, none of our parkland is safe. I am also concerned that community land, which was originally gifted to council, can then be given away for the benefit of a developer. There is plenty of vacant land, as Mitch said, within town boundaries for sale. I'm sure the owners of these blocks of land would be glad to be able to sell them. Any individual or family who wants to build a new home must buy a block of land. To gift land to a developer gives them an unfair advantage over ordinary families, allowing the developer to make a profit from land which actually belongs to the ratepayers. If an objective of the administration of local government land is to protect community interest in the land for current and future generations, I do not think this objective is being followed in this case. Taking away parkland is in fact detrimental to the residents who live around it. The implementation of this project would adversely affect the area and the local community, as has been explained to you, and would deprive future generations of parkland and open space. In my opinion, the current pleasant open park-like appearance of the allotment in question is much more attractive than a block full of houses would be. I acknowledge that Bordertown needs more rental accommodation as well as more affordable housing in good condition. Would council not be better to work with local builders to fill this need? In this current climate, with the coronavirus putting people out of work, perhaps there is an opportunity to provide work for local tradespeople. Has council considered this as an option? Although the proposal supposedly would enable up to 8 dwellings to be built, I note only one of these dwellings would have to be made available for rent, as available housing, affordable housing. In my opinion, this does not meet the criteria to provide more rental housing in the town. If council is only looking at land it currently owns, surely there is other land in that category. I note that the plan for long-term strategic land use should have an emphasis on the retail and commercial precincts of the town, neither of which relates to Densley Avenue and Edward Street. I note that under risk management implications for this revocation of allotment 39 Edward Street, in the council meeting agenda on the 10th of March 2020, there is a note that says, if there are strong objections to the revocation, council may resolve not to pass a motion to revoke the community land classification. Considering all of the above, I appeal to councillors not to go ahead with this proposal.
Good, thanks, Jill. Any questions, Jill? If not, thanks very much, Jill. Now it's over to Carolyn.
Good evening to all present. My name is Carolyn Ricks and I'm speaking on behalf of my husband Peter and myself. Peter and I oppose the revocation of community land, allotment 39, Edward Street, Bordertown. Allotment 39 is a community titled reserve. Today it has 30 well-developed trees on the park, cared for mainly by ratepayers with some minor help from the council. In 1989, Peter and I left a 1,200-acre farm to buy a house in Bordertown. We bought 29 Bertha Street. One of the main reasons we bought this property was the park, an open area our children could play in, they felt safe in. Today we go past the park every day. Our lives have changed. We are now always busy, doing something, going somewhere. The park brings peace and quiet to the area. This is land generously given to the Tatiara for everyone's enjoyment. Looking at the 43 blocks of land for sale and the land council owns, surely this must be looked at more seriously. How can the Tatiara District Council justify giving away at no cost to a developer a community reserve? Why should a developer be given at no cost so that he can in turn make a profit? We strongly urge every councillor to vote no to the community land revocation of 39 Edward Street, Bordertown.
Thank you, Carolyn. Any questions to Carolyn from for the elected members? If not, we got a fifth presenter, have we?
Yep. Kevin.
Kevin.
Yes, good afternoon to all councillors. Before I conclude this presentation, I'd ask that you look at this frame that I have on my lap. It was presented to me on April 2007, signed by present Councillor Diana Penniman, and she was with now Councillor Liz Guzens when it was awarded to me. It's a monthly award for special effort. His voluntary efforts in landscaping, beautifying and maintaining council-owned land on Densley Avenue. If I had known that this piece of land was going to be the subject of this discussion, I'd have saved myself a lot of time and effort over the last 14 years. To bring our presentation to a conclusion, I'll just summarise the arguments that we local residents have put together. 1. The proposal to revoke community land classification. All neighbouring residents were told when purchasing their current properties that this park was to remain undisturbed for the enjoyment of all around. This knowledge was included in the evaluation of the property that they purchased. 2. To allow up to 8 dwellings to be built on the land for the purpose of renting to tenants. This would increase vehicle traffic and congestion from parked cars on neighbouring streets, as has occurred around other areas of rental housing in nearby areas. This reserve is currently kept tidy by nearby homeowners and an occasional mowing by the Tatiara District Council. Who will keep this up if these two parties the nearby residents and the council are locked out of this area. Current topography and drainage. Because allotment 39 is at present to a large degree below the level of surrounding roadways and slopes towards the centre of the allotment, very little, if any, water runs off this land during heavy rain. Should this block be developed for housing, the resulting runoff would have to flow into the existing stormwater system, which is unable to handle any heavy rainfall, resulting in heavy flooding of nearby streets, as we've witnessed in recent years. 4, need for tree removal. Well, I've just told you where a lot of those trees have come from. They were planted in the period 2006-2007 for the purpose of beautifying the park and to absorb some of the water that should lay on the block after heavy rain. This was done with permission and guidance from Mr Callisto and Mr Crombie, representing the Tatiara Council, and the specific instructions given by them were followed. Where will replacement vegetation be planted if this report is implemented? And 5, to provide the land to a developer at no cost. We've all had a go at that, basically to give the land away. At the last tally over the weekend, there were 43 vacant blocks of land listed for sale in the township of Bordertown. And that's not allowing other council-owned land or land that is available for sale but not currently listed. What effect is this proposal going to have on those blocks of land that are for sale? Thank you, ladies and gentlemen of the council.
Good, thanks, Kevin. Any questions to Kevin?
Mayor Exwell, I haven't got a question.
Yeah.
I've
Councillor Hanneman.
to listen to this. It's not a question. I just feel sorry, and I almost feel like apologising for what's happened. But anyhow, we'll move on from it. So I feel really sorry this has happened.
Why do you feel sorry? Why do you feel sorry?
I feel sorry that we put you under this pressure, this angst. And yeah, I'm most probably talking out of school, but I just feel, I feel really sad that we've done this to these residents of this town. So we're going to discuss it later on in council, and I feel sorry. I apologise.
We thank you.
Thank you, Miles.
Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Hanneman. Is there anybody else presenting today?
No, this is it.
That's it. Well, thanks very much for your presentation, and it's certainly taken on board. This is the stage where we usually stop for afternoon tea and we mingle with you, but we can't do that because of this darn virus. So I'd like you to come and talk to us about it, because I think there's a few misconceptions there that the aim of the council is not what you perhaps think. So I'm hoping the dialogue between us can continue, and I hope we can work something out. So depending on what happens today at the council, we will let you know what happens further. So thanks very much. You can sit in on the council meeting if you like, but we've got about another 2 or 3 hours ahead of us. So
can I ask a question before you leave, please?
Yes, certainly.
Is this to be a decision on this to be deferred to the May meeting?
We've got a recommendation in the agenda, and I believe that's going to happen. But I can't say yes until that recommendation is passed. Thank you.
Graham, what sort of things do we don't understand that the council are saying?
The idea of where we're coming from, that you believe we're giving them land, is not the case indirectly. But I can't repeat everything on air like this. I'd like to be able to talk to you about it.
Right.
Because there is a few things there that you have to see it from our perspective as well, that what we're trying to do for our community.
Oh.
So I've got to move on. So thank you very much
Thank
for
you.
your presentation, and we'll certainly take
Thank
it
you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Now, item 4 on our agenda is the confirmation of minutes. And there's a recommendation there that the minutes be confirmed. Just say your name, you're moving it.
Councillor Hanneman here. Can we go back to having the agenda on the screen again? Thank you.
There's a recommendation there that the minutes of the council meeting held on the 10th of March 2020 and the minutes of the confidential council meeting on the 10th of March 2020 be taken as read and confirmed as an accurate record of proceedings of the meeting.
Councillor Goosens.
Councillor Goosens has moved it. There's a seconder.
Councillor Bennett.
Councillor Penniman seconded. All those in favour?
Yes.
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 Councillor
Yes.
McInerney,
That is
yes.
carried. Moving on. And where are we? Special council meeting, the 20th, yeah, special. Right, we've got another. Is anything arising from that till like, so I get through to the next resolution? I've lost it. There's a special council meeting for the 7th of April. Would somebody like to move that be taken as read and confirmed as an accurate record of proceedings of the meeting?
Councillor Hanneman confirmed.
Councillor Mock, second.
Who was it seconded?
Councillor Mock.
Councillor Mock, second. All those in favour?
Yes.
Councillor McInerney, yes.
Yeah,
Councillor
very
Hanneman,
good.
yes.
I'll
Councillor
say yes, but if there's a no in there, well, then I have to go back and work it all out. So,
Excuse me, Graham.
yes.
Excuse me, Mayor. We're actually 4.2, the special council meeting on the 16th of March, not the 7th of April. They're two separate ones.
Oh, right. 16th of March. Very good. Go backwards. Thank you, Mandy. This is a recommendation. The minutes of the special meeting held on the 16th of March be taken as read and confirmed as accurate.
Councillor McInerney, I'll move it.
Councillor McInerney's moved as a seconder.
Councillor Hanneman.
Councillor Hanneman's seconded. All those in favour?
Yes.
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 Against, that's carried. Did we get the other one carried, Mandy?
I'll move the 7th of April.
No, but we'll do that now.
We did have a move and a second. Did you put them in or not?
No.
You didn't, right.
I'll
Councillor Mock
second
has moved it.
that. Councillor Oliver.
Seconded by Councillor Oliver. All those in favour?
Yes.
Yes.
Against? That's carried. Now, got to get through to where I'm up to. Number 5, sorry, matters laid on the table from the previous meeting, Neil. Communications by the Mayor. We haven't run through the minutes. Is that going to be, anybody got anything to brought up from the minutes?
No.
I'll take that as we go, okay? Communications by the Mayor. March 2020 will go down in history as the month COVID-19 virus hit Australia. It's a change the way we do business. It also changes lives and the way we live. Thursday, the 12th of March, I attend the opening of the new Wickham Flower premises in Keith. Monday, the 16th of March, we had a special council meeting where we cancelled the Masters Games.
Okay.
Thursday, the 19th of March, the CEO and myself met with State Minister for Human Services, Michelle Lemsick, MLC, on affordable housing discussions. Wednesday, the 25th of March, we had a Zoom conference with the LGA for Premier Stephen Marshall on the state direction associated with the COVID-19 virus. On Friday, the 27th of March, I joined the LCLGA mayors for discussions on how the Limestone Coast councils are going to handle the COVID-19 virus. These meetings are now scheduled for every Friday. Tuesday, the 31st of March, we conduct an executive meeting using Microsoft Teams. Thursday, the 2nd of April, I joined a Zoom meeting with the LGA on COVID-19 updates. Tuesday, the 7th of April, we had a special council meeting using Teams, Microsoft Teams, to make it legal to conduct council meetings by electronic means. And on Wednesday, the 8th of April, I connected to the audit meeting. I'll move that the Mayor's report be accepted. Is there a seconder?
I'll second that. Councillor Oliver.
Councillor Oliver seconded. All those in favour?
Yes.
Yes.
Good. Carry, or whatever it is, yeah. I've just got to catch up with my agenda here. Reports of members, so I would suggest we start with Councillor Mock.
Thank you for that. I don't have one.
Don't have one. We go round like I normally do. Councillor Goosens.
Thank you. I attended the meeting on March the 16th in regard to the Masters Games, and then spent some time after that going around and speaking to people that I had spoken to in regard to sponsorship, and most were in agreement that we had done the correct thing in cancelling or postponing the games. And the general feedback from most of the sponsors were that they were quite happy to sponsor again when and if we hold the games. I then also attended an executive meeting on the 31st of March, also the special council meeting, and then on the 8th of April, the audit committee meeting where we had the auditors speak to us as well, and most of that's actually in our agenda. So that's it for me.
Very good. The next one is Councillor Oliver.
No, nothing from me, thanks.
Next one is Councillor Hanneman. Councillor Hanneman, you got anything to report?
He's probably on mute.
I've just unmuted. No, I can't. Sorry, Councillor Mayor Exel, no.
Your reports of members, Councillor Hanneman, you have anything to report?
I do not have a report.
Right.
Is that coming through?
What's that?
Can you hear that?
Just speak a little bit closer to your iPad.
Can you hear that report? That I have nothing to report?
Yep, all right. Councillor Penniman.
Pass.
Councillor Edwards, sorry.
Nothing to report, Mayor.
Thank you. Councillor Penniman now.
Same here.
Councillor Langley.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. The meeting's to do with the Masters Games. Sorry, I don't have the dates here on me. Just following up on the postponement cancellation of that, and a huge thank you to everyone that was involved. There still seems to be a lot of enthusiasm there. So thank you. And on the 31st of March, I attended a Zoom workshop for the Disability Access and Inclusion Planning. Thank you.
Good, thank you. Councillor Jackson.
Like Councillor Goosens and Langley, I've had the displeasure of having to tell a lot of people who've cancelled the Masters Games with regards to their sponsorship. But on the other note, I've attended 2 Limestone Coast Road Transport Working Group meetings now via Zoom, and the last one was ratifying 7 projects to go towards the LGA for ratification, amounting to about $1.9 million that we're hoping to achieve or request. So that's about all. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor McInerney.
No report, Mayor.
Thanks very much. That completes that. Now we're up to number 8, which is questions on notice. Neil, questions without notice.
Mayor, could I just have a question, please?
Yes.
I just need to ask why we were the only council that I'm aware of that didn't put a notice in the advertiser with regards to recommending that our community stay home.
Yes, that came from a meeting with the mayors, and Erica Vickery, as the chairman of the Limestone Coast, got that email. It only went out to chairs of those areas. Some councils asked it to be sent on to them. It was sent to me. You had to put a electronic signature to it, and I didn't know how to do that, and I didn't think it was that important because it was it was in the advertiser and all those sort of things. So I'm sorry, but I didn't put my name to it, but I did agree with it. and I didn't know it was so important.
Thank you.
It went to the southeast, and I think Richard Sage from Grant Council was the only other one that didn't sign it, but I think that's probably a bloke thing, not a, yeah, sorry about that.
Okay, thank you.
Right, next, item 10 on our agenda is petitions, and we have received a petition, and there's a recommendation that the petition regarding the proposed revocation of community land classification for allotment 39 Edward Street, Bordertown be received, sorry, it's not removed, received.
Councillor Mock.
Councillor Mock's moved it.
Councillor
speak to it? Do you wish to speak to it, Councillor Mock?
No, thank you.
Councillor Penniman.
Seconder?
Councillor Penniman.
Oh, Councillor Penniman, you wish to speak to it?
No.
Right. Ready to vote?
Mayor Exel, can I ask a question? Mayor Exel, can I ask a question?
Yes, right. Councillor Hanneman.
This, all we're doing now is receiving the petition. We're not discussing it.
No, that's right.
Right. Right. Thank you.
All those in favour?
Yes.
Yes. Yes.
No. That's carried. Now, where are we? Number 11 is motions on notice. Nil, motions without notice. Reports of committees, number 13, and there's a recommendation, the minutes of the Tatiara District Council Executive Committee meeting held on the 31st of March be received.
I'm happy to move that, Councillor Goosens.
Councillor Oliver, second.
Who was that?
Councillor Oliver.
Councillor Oliver, second. It's open for discussion. Anything want to bring anything up there? If not, ready to vote. All those in favour?
Yes.
Yes.
Against? Right, moving on. We've got it's a in that minute. We've got another minute there that the council endorsed the CEO's membership of the local government chief officers group. There's a recommendation there from the executive committee.
Councillor Oliver will move.
Councillor Oliver's moved it.
Councillor Hanneman, second.
Councillor Hanneman, second. If you're all
I have a question, Mayor. Councillor McInerney, question.
If you're all up to date with that, I'd like to explain that our CEO has been invited to join the local government chief executives officers group. That's from right around Australia. There's only 10 from South Australia that have had the invite. I believe it's probably what you call a feather in the cap of our CEO, and I believe that our council can get to the forefront on all new initiatives and ideas that come our way, come this way. Anyone else want to speak to it?
Councillor McInerney, I just have a question.
Yes, Councillor McInerney.
I completely support it, but I was just wondering what the cost is and what impact it will have on the budget, because I can't see that there was any explanation with regards to
we've
that.
got $5,000 in the budget for training and improvement for our officers. It would be probably 1 or 2 meetings. There is 3 meetings a year, but CEOs indicate it's probably only go to 1 or 2. It means an airline ticket to somewhere in Australia. There is also a meetings over in New Zealand as well, but probably not likely to go there, as you indicated. And there'll be accommodation for probably 2 nights as well. So it would be airline ticket and 2 nights accommodation, and some of probably expending money as well. So it would be a cost, but I believe we will recoup that.
And it was remiss of me to not declare an interest before I was taken up with getting the the deputation started. So I should have declared an interest in this item. My apologies.
Do you want to add anything to that, CEO?
No, thank you. I think that was a good summary. I probably would suggest that would likely be only 1 meeting a year, simply because it takes a lot of time out of the office, but it is within the budget.
Good. Anybody have questions?
Councillor Jackson,
Yes, Councillor Jackson.
I hope this is not giving her a little leave pass to leave our clutches in the foreseeable future, is it?
We can't look into the foreseeable future, I don't think.
Councillor Mock here.
Yes, Councillor Mock.
I think Anna's camera in her office is a lot better than the one she's on now, unless you're using the same computer. I'm not sure.
I am using the same computer, but I am sitting in the council chambers because I started the recording in the council chambers and I cannot leave the council chambers without interrupting the recording.
Understood. Thank you.
If there's no further questions, all those in favour?
Yes.
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 No? That's carried. Now, next one is the minutes of the Bordertown on the Move committee held on the 11th of March. The minutes of the Bordertown on the Move meeting be received.
Move Councillor Penniman.
Councillor Penniman's moved as a seconder.
Councillor Jackson.
Oh, Councillor Jackson.
Councillor Jackson. Any discussion? If not, all those in favour?
Yes.
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 Against? That's carried. Now, minutes of the Mandala on the Move committee meeting held on the 16th of March to be received.
Mr. Mayor, before you go on, Councillor McInerney, could I just ask a question of the CEO, please, with regards to Bordertown on the Move?
Yes.
Okay. In originally setting up the new terms of reference for the Bordertown on the Move, it was written in that the committee will review its performance at least annually and no later than the anniversary date of its establishment. I did speak to the CEO with regard to this in November and was informed that because the members had not been on that committee for a period of 12 months, it would be reviewed in February. That has not happened, but what I'm concerned about is that the actual terms of reference says that completion of tasks is set out in its annual work program, length of meeting and effective use of available meeting time and attendance by members. So that's what the review constitutes. I would just like to know from the CEO when she proposes that the review will be carried out, because I believe that it was based on the fact that she was going to carry out reviews on Mandala on the Move and Keith Urban Committee because they were a bit easier than Bordertown on the Move. And I think it could be argued, and I'm certainly not going to do that, that we could be in breach of the terms of reference. That's all.
Do you want to reply to that, Anna?
Yes, thank you. So Mandala on the Move is not a committee of council, so it is really Bordertown on the Move and Keith Urban. Their intent originally in the terms of reference obviously was to have a mechanism that we review all of our committees and how we perform regularly. So yes, that review should have happened. It has not, and it's probably not timely to do it at the moment when we're actually not able to physically meet. So we also expected that we would have the community planning and we would undertake that, which was penciled in for May and June, and that would provide some direction for all of the committees going forward to look at what are the priorities that we're working towards on behalf of the community, and that direction really was intended to come out of the community planning. So I think that is still an important consideration, that the community planning should provide that direction to all of those committees that operate in the different towns, and that we then should check whether the way we are performing, whether that meets with those priorities and achieves those priorities for the community. So it is probably delayed, and I think it should be delayed some further until we actually have, the work plan, which comes from the community planning, that we can compare ourselves against.
Good, thank you. Any further questions on that?
No, thanks. Thank you to the CEO for that report. I just wondered, do we need to make a resolution that it be deferred indefinitely, given that it should have been performed and it hasn't been? Again, I'd ask the CEO for some advice.
Everybody ready to move on? Right. The minutes of the Mandala on the Move committee be received.
I'm happy to move that, Councillor Goosen.
Councillor Goosen, seconder.
Councillor Mock.
Councillor Mock. All those in favour?
Yes.
Yes.
No. That's carried. Now, the minutes of the Tatiara District, I've got something in there. Audit Committee meeting held on the 8th of April be received.
I'm happy to move that, councillor Goosens.
Councillor Goosens moved it as a seconder.
Councillor Mock.
Councillor Mock has seconded. It's open discussion. Anybody got any comments?
Councillor Mock again.
Yes.
This recommendation, I think, is in our agenda twice. Whether you want to move it later on.
Thank you, Councillor Milk. I just noticed that too. So that recommendation should really just, the second one should have a note to it to say that it's dealt with in a separate report. I think that's how we've dealt with that in the past. So we'll just make a note that this is dealt with in report. Whichever report it is, my apologies, I can't find it this quickly. Report 16.4.
Report, yeah.
Yep.
Right.
Thank you.
Right. Now, Mandy, we got it moved and seconded. Did we get it carried? No, we haven't. Any further discussion on the audit meeting? If not, ready to vote, all those in favour?
Yes.
Yes.
No.
Yes.
Any no's? No. All right, that's carried.
Which has been carried, may I ask?
The receiving the minutes of the audit meeting. The other one,
Right.
the recommendation we dealt with in report 16.4. Is that all right?
Louise?
Yes, I'm still here. I think that the intent was to move this recommendation, noting that it was also in 16.4.
We received the minutes,
yes,
and we've moved and carried that. The next part we've recommended be dealt with in the report 16.4. Do you want to move in a second of that recommendation? All right, we'll do that because it's a recommendation there. So will somebody like to move that it be dealt with in report 16.4?
Councillor Oliver, I'll move that it be.
All right, Councillor Oliver's moved. Is there a seconder?
Yes, I'll move that, Councillor Mock.
The Mock second. All those in favour?
Yes.
Very good. That's carried.
Yes. Yes.
Right. Informal gatherings. We got nothing. Correspondence. Nothing. Reports of officers for the strategic plan. There's a recommendation that the Limestone Coast Council endorsed the Limestone Coast Local Government Association draft the strategic plan, and that's what we listened to for Tony Wright from the LCLGA this afternoon. Somebody like to move that recommendation?
Councillor Jackson.
Councillor Jackson's moved it. Wish to speak to it?
No, it was a good report today.
Seconder?
Councillor Goosens?
Councillor Goosens seconds. Wish to speak to it?
No, I agree with you.
Any further speakers? All those in favour?
Yes.
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 Any no's?
Yes.
All that's carried. Now there's the 16.2 is the Limestone Coast Joint Planning Board recommendation that Council endorsed the Limestone Coast Joint Planning Agreement Attachment 1 and agrees with that the Mayor and the Chief Executive Officer execute the agreement on behalf of the Tatiara Council.
Councillor McInerney, so moved.
Councillor McInerney's moved it. Wish to speak to it?
No.
Is there a second?
Councillor Pennant.
Councillor Pennant seconded. Wish to speak to it?
No.
Any further speakers?
Councillor Jackson speaking. It just seems to be it's going to be a lot of onus on our manager Rocky whenever this comes into effect.
Yes, that is for sure. And Rocky's probably the most qualified planning officer in the southeast. So we've got him in our office. So I think we're in good hands. We've got a move and a second. Any further speakers? All in favour?
Yes.
Yes.
Against? That is carried. Now we're down to the monthly financial report, and there's a recommendation there. And I suppose is Judy in the online?
Unfortunately, Judy is been unwell and has gone home.
Right. Does anybody want to talk to it?
I'll move it. Councillor Mock.
You want to speak to it?
No, thank you.
Is there a seconder?
Councillor Pennant.
Councillor Pennant, wish to speak to it?
No.
Any further speakers on the monthly financial comparison? Did you want to do a brief update on it, the CEO, Anna, CEO?
Probably not at this point. I would flag that with the next report, the budget review, any questions we may have to do our best to answer what we can, but we will also have a budget workshop coming up where we can have some further discussion.
Right. We all heard that. 16.4 is the budget review, and there's a recommendation that the council adopt the 2019-20 third budget review showing a budget surplus cash surplus of $144,102 and an operating deficit of $964,362.
We will still have to vote on the previous one, 16.3. We have a mover and a seconder, what I believe we haven't voted yet.
Oh, right. All those in favour?
Yes.
Yes.
Against? That's carried. Sorry about that. The next one was 16.4. And that is the recommendation that cash surplus and operating deficit.
I'm happy to move that, Councillor Goosens.
Councillor Goosens moved it. Is there a second? All is quiet.
Councillor Jackson.
Councillor Jackson has seconded. Any speakers?
Councillor Edwards, just a question.
Councillor Edwards, yep.
Our report we had attached had a deficit of 730,000. Has that been updated since? Has the audit committee updated the figures since then?
That's probably the rubble, the 200,000 on the rubble. Is it
Can the CEO enlighten us on that?
Sorry, my apologies. There was a note of $200,000 in rubble raising, which we, when the rehearse was put together for the audit committee, we had the 200,000 taken out because we believe we wouldn't have that expense, we wouldn't raise any more rubble. But then that changed and we found that we still needed to raise more rubble. And so the 200,000 went back in, but which is reflected in the deficit in here, but I'm afraid it might not be reflected in the other figures.
Councillor Edwards, you want to comment on that again?
No, just pointing out that it's not the same.
Councillor Mock here.
Yes.
Yes, we picked it up in the audit meeting as well, and it's been carried through into this report. But the 900 is the correct number.
All right.
Aaron Hillier here. Just to clarify, I thought we were reducing the rubble raising budget by 200,000.
Oh God, no.
No? So that's probably something we'll have to clarify with Jude.
Yeah.
I thought it was taken out, Aaron, and then it was put back in.
Yes, correct.
Okay.
Right. Any further questions or any further speakers on that? Ready to vote? All those in favour?
Yes.
Yes.
Any against?
Yes.
That's carried. Fees and charges. And there's a recommendation there that the fees and charges for the caravan park.
Councillor Hanneman here. Can I ask a question? Is the caravan park open? Yes.
The caravan park open to permanent residents and also essential travellers, yes.
Thank you.
Is there a mover to that recommendation?
I will move that we update the fees and charges. Councillor Hanneman.
Councillor Hanneman, is there a seconder?
Councillor Goosens.
Councillor Goosens seconded. Any speakers?
Councillor Mock has a question.
Yes.
With the van storage in the chart, is it $11 a week or $11 a night? Near the bottom of
Kingsley Green speaking. That'd be $11 per night.
So it appears that that chart is a bit confusing where it's got per week. The 7th line from the bottom.
Yeah, I believe it is calculated on a week.
Okay.
Because 1 week on an unpowered site is the explanation in the tariff.
Anything else on that?
Yes, I just had a question. In the bit of a report, just a couple of lines up before the word options in our agenda, it said the use of the shower and towel and the hire of a cot with linen, there's two separate comments, proposed charge of $5 per time. So I'm reading that as being the use of the shower and a towel is $5, and yet in the chart, the use of the shower is $5 and the use of a towel is $5. So is that correct, or so is that meant to be $10 if you had a shower and a towel, or it'd be $5?
Somebody answer that.
Kingsley here, Kingsley Green speaking. I can't see that in front of me at the moment, but I would take it that they were $5 each.
Right. Just this is in part of the agenda. Where is it? Here. You've got 2 dot points. It's the first dot point. You said in response to this ongoing review, this report proposes the following additional charges for additional services offered at the Bordertown Caravan Park. The first dot points, use of the shower and towel. Proposed charge of $5 per time, and then but in the chart you've got $5 for each of them. I'm only just querying. That's all.
Kingsley Green speaking again. I would argue that it's $5 for the shower and for $5 for the towel, right, and then $5 if you want to hire the cot.
Yeah.
And if I could just add in, my apologies, with the previous one, the van storage. It is calculated on 50% discount on the unpowered side. So I think that per week there should not be in there. So it should indeed be a daily charge. The Director of Corporate and Community Services was entirely correct.
Councillor Hanneman here again. Should we be voting on this? Because there seems to be some dispute about whether it's this or like the $11 per week or per day. We should get it right before we vote on it, shouldn't we?
It was based, Kingsley Green speaking, it was based on that 50% reduction because they're still occupying a site at the caravan park, irrespective of whether somebody's there or not. So we were providing that discounted price. So it's based on per night basis.
Is it $11 a day or $11 a week?
$11 per night.
Per night. So if you look at the line for a start, it's 1 week and it's got calculated on unpowered side of $22 a night. So the 1 week shouldn't be there.
Councillor Oliver, it's actually saying it's less than a week for the first one and more than a week for the second one.
Yes. So the price reduces. So if you are parking your van there for more than a week, then the nightly figure is a 75% discount of what we would generally charge for an unpowered site. If you're
Councillor
staying
Mock.
there for more than a week, you'd be paying $5.50 a night. If you're staying there for under a week, you'd be paying $11 a night to store your van and not access any of the services that the caravan park provides.
Councillor Mock.
Yes, Councillor Mock.
I believe that pretty much clears it up, and I'm prepared to vote and move the motion.
Right, it's been moved and seconded, moved by Councillor Hanneman and seconded by Councillor Guzens. So we got any further speakers? Ready to vote? All those in favour?
Yes.
Yes.
Against?
Good. Councillor Guzens here. I'd just like to note that I wasn't really aware of what caravan park fees would be, but it was reassuring to see that you have compared the prices with our neighbouring, I can't see it now, but that we're in line with our neighbouring caravan parks, and that I presume we're sort of in line then with what happens at Keith.
Good, thank you, Councillor Guzens. We voted on that.
Yes.
We have.
Yep.
Councillor
Right.
Mock would like to make another comment.
Right. Yes, Councillor Mock.
Yes, thank you. I presume that our RV system is not now operating very well because of COVID-19, but we intend to bring in a $10 charge per night for RVs, and that should be really reflected in our caravan park budget, because this has been a repercussion of our ownership.
Councillor Green, not Councillor Kingsley Green, can you answer that?
I'm not quite sure how you want me to clarify that, Councillor Mott.
Thank you. I think when we do our budgeting, which is proposed,
yes,
and our profit and loss, any income we get from the RVs should be included in that, plus any perhaps wages that are involved in collecting the fees.
Yes, to answer your question, that we hope to obviously operate the caravan park as a business environment, a business entity, and we'd like to be able to encapsulate that part of the environment as well within the business transactions for the park.
And just to add to that, yes, our RV sites are currently closed, so we haven't progressed that further with the charging. But for the new year, I think we can make an assumption. It will be a very vague assumption of what we may be raising from the fees that we've put in place. But certainly I don't expect that we'd be raising any in this year, simply because those restrictions that have been put in place around caravan parks and so on are likely going to be, and RV sites are likely going to be in place for at least 6 months.
Thank you.
Right, is anything further on that?
Mr. Mayor, Councillor McInerney, could I just make a comment?
Yes.
I was under the impression that we were going to develop further land. I'm not sure which, I suppose it's north of the current lake, and that was also going to be part of the whole complex, and surely that would be a consideration before we would start looking at what we're going to charge casual stayers overnight. I think it's an assumption
I think there was some recommendation like that, but it all sort of came to a halt when the virus came around and we've closed that area.
Yeah.
I believe Council at a previous meeting resolved to both establish that site, which is off Winters Road, and to charge fees of $10 a night. So that is still on the cards, but at the moment, with the restrictions that are in place, there's probably not much point in doing the development right now at this point.
Okay. Thank you.
Anything further? Right, we're down to 16.6 Victorian Parade Bridge, and over to the Director of Infrastructure and Operations.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. as you're aware, we had a structural condition assessment of the Victoria Parade Bridge carried out in 2017. The results stated that in the long term, it's not structurally sound to handle the loads currently going over it. It was initially a single lane bridge and then it was converted to a 2-lane bridge, and the weakness in it is where it joins. So it was recommended to install a 15-tonne load limit, which would impact on freight movements. Obviously, it's a freight route servicing Pilgrim's grain storage facility and also Viterra grain bunkers out at Wolseley. The bridge doesn't meet modern day standards as well, and that's in particular, that's the width of the bridge and also the guard railing. We looked at the different options to strengthen the bridge, but overall it's just not economical to do so. So we've continued to carry out annual condition assessments, and they've indicated that there's not any major structural damage occurring to the bridge at this point. However, with the bridge renewal funding grant opening in recent times, we have an opportunity to apply for funds, and if successful, we could replace the bridge next year. And fortunately, this year the bridge does meet the criteria. Last time when the bridge funding program was opened, it was for timber bridges only, so it was ineligible. There are some other options available. We could defer the replacements, or we could install a 15-tonne load limit. Obviously, installing a load limit would have a pretty big impact on the freight movements. They'd have to go all the way either around Bordertown or through the township of Bordertown using McLeod Street. From a financial perspective, the difference in depreciation between the new bridge and the old bridge is about $1,000 annually. However, there would be the remaining written down value of the bridge would have to be written off, and that sits at around about $100,000 now. However, this additional cost would reduce council's risk exposure by improving the safety on the bridge. So happy to answer any questions there, but there's a recommendation for your consideration.
Any questions for a start? Just one question, Aaron, was when we were looking at it about 12 months, 18 months ago, we decided to put away 50%. I thought we'd put away 50% of that allocation to future repair of that bridge or renewal of that bridge. That happened?
Yeah, so that went into reserve and it's still sitting in reserve. It is proposed to bring that $200,000 out of reserve with the view that if we were successful, then we could proceed with the project next year.
Good, thanks very much for clarifying that. There's a recommendation.
Councillor Penniman, I'll move in line with the recommendation.
Thank you, Councillor Penniman. Is there a seconder?
Jackson, Councillor Jackson.
Councillor Jackson, seconded. It's open for discussion. Any further speakers?
I'd like to ask Councillor Hanneman.
Councillor Hanneman.
It says annual budget of approximately 210. How close do you think that's going to be? Because we don't know how much their government's going to give us.
It's a 50-50 funding arrangement. So, yeah, we're looking at around about 410 to 420. We still need to review the prices, which would involve us getting some costs done on the culverts. The prices were done back in 2017, but it's a 50-50 funding arrangement. So I envisage it to be around about that $210,000 contribution from council.
Thank you.
Can I just ask a question, Councillor
Yes.
Pearsons? If we don't get the funding, I'm just trying to read the motion there, would we go ahead with replacing the bridge, or will we hold off and wait until we are successful with the funding?
That'd be up to council. At this point in time, based on the condition assessments, there's no urgency to replace it. The consultant has come back and said it's probably going to last about 10 years in its current use. So it really would be a question to council if we were unsuccessful, whether we wanted to hold off or whether we wanted to proceed with the project.
Councillor Jackson.
Yes, go ahead.
I think this is a very good opportunity. You know, it's we've got time on our side if we are unsuccessful, and yet it's going to be a very good stimulus package for the agricultural sector, I think, from a government point of view, going forward with this, trying to stimulate a bit of activity. So I think it's a good option to to apply for this now.
Any further speakers?
Could I ask another question, please, to
Yeah.
Aaron?
Yes,
Councillor
Councillor
Goosens?
Goosens.
I'm in support of it, but Aaron, I'm just wondering, do you receive much feedback from Victoria Parade residents with the amount of trucks that go down there? That's my only concern with we're still going to have to go ahead and repair the bridge, but just worry about the amount of trucks going through on Victoria Parade. I don't see as being ideal, but I guess we don't have much choice. But I'm just wondering whether you have much comment from the community.
I have had some feedback, yeah, and it's probably to do with the timber trucks that were going through there at times. There was an increase in truck movements at that time. It is a B double gazetted route and has been for 20 plus years. At this point in time, there's not a lot of other options to utilise to gain access to Tatiara Road, which obviously those two businesses. Yeah, so I suppose in short, yes, we have had some feedback that some residents aren't that happy with the truck movements along there. But there's not a lot that we can actually do about that.
Okay, thanks.
Councillor Jackson again. I guess the other option would be we look at developing a couple of those other rubble roads that are further to the south, as far as a bypass around Bordertown completely.
If there's no further discussion on it.
No, Councillor Bennett speaking. I'll just close the debate and say
Yes.
I think it's an opportunity that we should take at the moment. And if it's not successful, we look at the options then.
All right. Councillor Penham has closed the debate. All those in favour?
Yes.
Yes.
Against? That's carried. Now, 16.7 dog registrations. Director of Development Environmental Services.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just to, yeah, this is basically a review we do every year. I've decided, made a recommendation this year that we don't increase any fees whatsoever, but that's for council to discuss and debate if they wish. So there's a recommendation there, which we have to adopt the fees. They don't go back to the Dog and Cat Management Board. It's basically a council decision.
Right, the recommendation there that council adopt the following dog registration fees and schedules. Is there a mover for that recommendation?
Councillor McInerney, I'm happy to move that resolution.
Very good. Wish to speak to it?
No, good report.
Is there a seconder to the motion?
Yes.
Councillor Mock.
Councillor Mock seconded. Wish to speak to it?
No, thank you.
Any further speakers? Who was that? I didn't catch that one. No, it's not there. Any further speakers? All those in favour?
Yes.
Yes.
Against? That's carried. Now we've got applications for a deposit of plan of division. Director of Environmental Services.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. Again, this is just a procedural issue. That this is the final piece in the jigsaw, really, for the industrial estate. The 6 allotments we created, plus the extending McClellan Road. So it's just a procedural issue that needs to be done and lodged with the Lands Titles Office and undertaken by Western Giorgio.
Right, is there a mover for the recommendation?
Councillor Penniman.
Councillor Penniman moved it. Wish to speak to it?
No.
Councillor Oliver.
Second it. Councillor Oliver seconded it. Wish to speak to it? If not, it's open for discussion. Ready to vote? All those in favour?
Yes.
Yes.
Against? That is carried. 16.9, and we have got the recommendation of section 36 of the Local Government Act. That's right, under seal. We put that one, didn't we? Right, community land revocation allotment 105 Bennett Street, Keith. And there's a recommendation there that the council, after receiving report, considering the report titled Land Revocation Allotment 105 Bennett Street, Keith. Council intends to proceed with the community land on allotment 105 Bennett Street, Keith, and the land is surplus to council needs and the proposed and utilised as residential development and authorise the staff to proceed with public consultation on this proposal in accordance with the council's public consultation policy.
Councillor Oliver.
Councillor Oliver, you're moving in that?
Yes.
Is there a wish to speak to it?
Oh, really just a question. So if this was to go ahead, it goes out to consultation and then it moves on, would it be one developer for the whole lot, or could it be divided smaller?
Can you answer that, please, Robbie?
Yeah. Through you, Mr. Mayor. No, look, I suspect that it will be done in stages. Well, firstly, it'd be interesting to see whether we get any expression of interest, but it'll certainly be done in stages because there's 22 allotments. So we would probably advertise for expressions of interest. We would see what would come in, would analyse them, would make a decision if we're going to proceed with any, and then basically, proceed on like that. So I suspect there could be, stage one might be 4 allotments.
Okay.
But keeping in mind, the whole land will be revoked. This is the first part of the process about revoking that land from community land.
Yes.
So Councillor Hannam here, are we going to sell this land once it's revoked, or are we giving it away?
Well, through you, Mr. Mayor, there was a resolution previous at the March meeting that basically resolved to call expression of interest. That doesn't mean we're actually going to give the land away at all. We may consider expression of interest and decide we're not going to go down that path. So it's really one step at a time. But council did resolve to call for expressions of interest to develop the land. Keeping in mind there is no infrastructure on that land, so it's going to be a substantial cost to put that in there.
Fine. So,
any further questions on that? Oh, we haven't got a seconder yet. Can you second that, Councillor Hanneman?
I will second that. Yes, I will second it.
All right, you've seconded it. Any further speakers? If not, we're ready to vote. All those in favour?
Yes.
Yes. Yes.
Against? That's carried. Now, we've got the community land revocation allotment 39 Edward Street, Bordertown. There's a recommendation there. And would you like to, was it Anna want to speak a little bit more to that?
I'm happy to do it, Mr. Mayor. Basically, this is the next step in the process. We've gone to consultation. There's been substantial interest in it and submissions and petitions. They've put their case forward today. Probably the environment doesn't lend itself really to making harder decisions like this, but so basically the next step in the process, either council says no, we're not going to proceed with this revocation, or they say yes, we are going to proceed with it, we're actually going to send it to the minister. If it goes to the minister, obviously all the reports, all the submissions, all the petitions all go to the minister, or we then could potentially lay it on the table, but laying it on the table doesn't mean you can actually raise it at any time. There's no actually specific time, or you can adjourn it, which is the option, which is probably the preferred option, to adjourn it to the May meeting. So it just gives a bit more time. It also gives a bit more time for councillors to really get an understanding of what's happening. Also, the people, there might be some informal dialogue with the residents in close proximity. As I alluded to previously, after the meeting today, I had a bit of a chat with some of the people and just explained what potentially could happen, which I think it made it a bit clearer to them. So I would hope that after today's meeting that we could sit there and have a bit more discussion with the people who have objected to put submissions in, because I don't think there's a real clear understanding exactly what council's proposing. And I think, you know, some of the issues such as social housing compared to affordable housing. Social housing is more about providing a housing trust area rather than affordable housing, where it's a house that's built to a very good standard, but the rent may be 85 or 75% of the market rent, and the rates are also 75 or 85%. I can't remember under legislation what it is, but I think there was this misconception there that there was going to be a heap of transportable houses plonked on this land, which really was going to turn it into, you know, wasn't going to beautify the area. But so my recommendation is that we adjourn it. It's up to the council to discuss and make that decision. So I'm happy to answer any questions.
So Councillor Hanneman here. Sure, whatever style of houses you're putting on this piece of land is still taking away a park that was left as a park, which has got trees. And with 43 other blocks of land for sale in Bordertown, why do we need to take away a park? And I'll be moving a motion to put this to bed today, because the poor people that are suffering.
We haven't got a recommendation yet, Councillor Hanneman, to make a statement like that. So we have to either go to the recommendation or ask questions.
Right,
Mr.
I'll
Mayor,
ask a question.
Councillor McInerney, I would like to move a motion that this recommendation be deferred until the May meeting, at which time we can have plenty of time to look into it and make a decision that makes sense.
Yeah, well, there is clause 2 in there to resume the debate during the council meeting commencing at 5 p.m. on the 12th of May 2020. Now, there was a CEO. Can she come in here, please? Because she did say there was possibly another point to put in there.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just to add to this, we've added a 4th dot point just to make it really clear to people that they still have the opportunity to comment, because we did actually close the consultation period, I believe, on the 8th of April. So we just wanted to make really clear that we're still interested in conversation, we're still interested in comment, and I believe that some of the residents have still been seeking signatures for their petition as well. I believe the recommendation as it currently stands covers what Councillor McInerney was just suggesting with deferral. It's just using the formal wording from the Local Government Act about adjourning the matter and then resuming the debate.
Right, we still can move that recommendation, Councillor McInerney, so it's up to the meeting. We either move that recommendation or we put in a fresh one to defer the whole thing for the next meeting.
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, look, I'm not particularly happy with the 4 points. I think we need to send a message to the community that we're actually listening to what they've got to say, and we are obviously very interested in trying to come up with the right decision. I think we need to send a message to them that we're going to defer it and discuss it again in May, and that gives them plenty of chance to talk to us, the councillors and whatever. So point two
already says that. Resume the debate during council meeting commencing at 5 p.m. on the 12th of May.
That's correct, and that's the only point I would move.
That's the only one you were going to move?
Yes.
Right. Can you put that up there, Mandy, as a recommendation?
So if I might just add in here, my apologies, but the wording that was used was the formal wording required to adjourn the debate. So we can say we defer it. If we are looking at this as a formal motion, then it would be a motion to adjourn this question and to then resume the debate at a particular time, at a particular place. Point 3 is just to let them know that that's what council decided to do. And point 4 is just to say we are really still listening. We're not taking this opportunity away from you. So it's probably providing just a little bit more explanation rather than simply saying we're deferring it. So we can just have a motion that says that council defer debate until the May meeting. This is actually the formal version of the same motion, I suppose. So if Councillor McInerney would like to move that we defer it, yeah, absolutely we can do it. But we would, if we wanted to adjourn the question in the formal sense, we do need the other points as well.
can I just make a point, Mr. Mayor?
Yes.
Under the Local Government Act, if you're going to adjourn an issue, you must have a reason for it. And that's why I think all the points are relevant. We're saying that due to the impact of the coronavirus is why, and then we want further debate on it, is why, and it's really having an impact on the public attending and whatever. That's why the 4 points are all there, well, the 3 plus the additional one we're putting in now about the further consultation. So I think it's really saying exactly the same thing, except as the CEO is saying, it really formalises in accordance with the Local Government Act.
Thanks very much, Rocky. You've heard Rocky's explanation there, and I'd like to ask for
Councillor
recommendation for the
Oliver.
4 points.
Councillor Oliver, I'd like to
Councillor Oliver,
move the 4 points as they stand.
Right, Councillor Oliver's moved that the recommendation as it stands with the 4 points. Wish to speak to it?
I need to say that I probably would have preferred like 3 months rather than 1 month, but it does give further opportunity for public consultation.
Right. Is there a second for the motion?
Councillor Mock.
Councillor Mock second. Wish to speak to it?
Just to say that when I was in lower primary school on the bus going along Canawigwa Road, the only house in that corner of town was the Vile House on the corner. That is the corner of Park Terrace and Canawigwa Road. So in that 60 years, things have changed a lot.
Yeah, they sure have. And it'll change a lot in the next 60 years too, I think.
Can I?
Radio, we've got a
Councillor Hanneman here.
Councillor Hanneman.
Are you allowed to move an amendment to the, so that I would like to move an amendment to the motion. Is that possible?
Well, what are you going to try to amend before we try and, yeah, I'll give you permission to say what you want to amend.
Well, I'm not sure what's going on, but I wonder what we're going to hear. I've spoken to these people on the weekend, and I'm wondering what new information's coming out, and perhaps I'm not sure what the information I've had is correct. Is that I see a piece of parkland that's going to be taken away and put houses on. So what's going to be different in 1 month or 2 months' time for that? I think people are under pressure enough at the moment without having to worry about losing their parklands. And yes, there was houses. So if we've got a bit of parkland, let's save it for the future. So can I move an amendment how do I do it?
Well, you'd have to say you want to move an amendment to it.
I'd like to move an amendment.
What you're going to amend, because virtually we are giving more time and more discussion about it, because I don't think at this stage amendment is required.
Well, I'm wondering what is going to come out. New information is going to come out that we already don't have in front of us.
Well, I believe Rocky's had a good talk to him today, and I believe we need another meeting with him. And I believe that things could be different in a month's time.
Well, how come Rocky hasn't told us, the councillors, that information? We should know that, because we're being asked to vote on something, and I think we should have everything laid on the table in front of us.
Can you come in there, please, Rocky? Because I know what you're talking about, and I'm not sure whether all councils know it.
Yes, certainly, Mr. Mayor. I mentioned at the start of when we started discussing this, I said, and I've only had a discussion with them today after the meeting, basically a general discussion. That's what I said at the start of when we discussed this matter. And as I reiterated then, I said, I think it may be wise if we actually started some additional dialogue with these people just to try and explain exactly the situation. That doesn't mean it's going to change their mind. I'm not sure what it will do, but at least it gives them an opportunity. And deferring it or adjourning it, that was their request. It wasn't, and I think it makes good sense that you just try and give them every opportunity. Ultimately, council has to make a decision. But if we can explain and open up the dialogue and be open and transparent about it, I think it just is good communication.
Good, thanks, Rocky. And that was what I believe we should talk to them about, because I believe they've got a misconception of what we're trying to do. Now, Councillor Hanneman, if you want to move an amendment, you can.
Well, I was going to, yes, I would like to move an amendment that council doesn't revoke allotment 39 at Edward Street from parklands to housing.
So the council resolve not to revoke the community land.
Absolutely.
Yep.
Can I just make a comment there again? I would have thought that is totally contrary to the first resolution. So wouldn't that be a separate resolution?
Yeah, you're probably right, because this is an opposite. This is completely kicking it out, isn't it?
Yeah. As Councillor Jackson,
Yep.
if I can just make a comment, is that, I mean, I think the May the 12th date is probably still pretty close. I mean, we may still decide that at that particular meeting that we might revoke the whole situation anyway, subject to how any meeting negotiations go between whoever and the particular parties. I don't mind this one here. I'm just wondering whether that 12th of May should not actually go out to the June meeting before it's actually a decision is made whether we revoke the whole application or we still proceed with it. I don't know what other people think of that, but
Anna, can you come in there, please?
Yeah, I was going to suggest that we might proceed with them one by one. So we've got a motion at the moment that we've got a mover and seconder for. We have an amendment. I can't see how else we can deal with the amendment by putting that to the vote. I take on board that is pretty much the exact opposite of what was the previous motion says, but I can't see any other way how we can procedurally deal with the amendment that we have. So the amendment is a council resolve, and it probably should be not to proceed with the revocation because it's actually not us who do the revocation, but the minister. So you might put that to the test first and see if we have a seconder for that.
Councillor Edwards will second that.
Councillor Edwards has seconded that. So you want to put this motion up above the other one?
That's right? What you do with an amendment.
Yes, this will be the amendment that will be putting to the vote now.
Yep. All right. Well, it's sort of actually, I'm not so sure whether it's an amendment though. That's as Rocky pointed out. Under what do you think? Is it an amendment or is it or not?
It is a new motion, but if we resolve on the first motion, then we can't, with the second motion, completely rescind it in the same meeting either.
Yeah, that's right. So I need a bit of direction here what to do.
So I would still proceed with putting it to the vote unless anybody else has a difference of opinion.
We'll put it as an amendment and put it to the vote. All right. Any further
Before I would like to speak for it. Councillor Hanneman.
Councillor Hanneman, you're speaking for them. You're closing the debate if you speak to it.
Well, I won't close it until someone else would like to speak to it first. I'd like to close the debate.
Right.
Would anyone else like to speak first?
To the amendment?
Councillor Edwards has seconded it. Would Councillor Edwards like to speak to it?
No.
Councillor Edwards?
No.
He doesn't want to speak to it? Right.
No.
So, right, Councillor Hanneman, you can close the debate.
So it's Councillor Hanneman here. The reason I'm moving this amendment is that I've spoken to these people over the weekend. I've done a lot of investigation. There's 43 blocks of land for sale in Bordertown now. And also I spoke to a town planner and he suggested that you don't want to have the same group of people in one block. So by having random purchases of land, we could separate the people. And secondly, if you've got a block of land for sale in Bordertown and you're trying to sell it, you'd be pretty disappointed that council's coming over the top and giving a potential buyer free land, which gives a developer a advantage over someone that's bought a block of land. So that's why I've moved this amendment. And also, secondly, I think we should times of this virus is we should give people a free feel as though we're listening and caring. But all these phone calls I had on the weekend, the people are very sad, and I just don't think we should. I think we should not delay it. We should do it right now. So that's why I've moved this amendment.
I could have a talk to you quite a bit about this, but I'll put it to the vote. All those in favour?
Yes.
Yes.
Councillor Hanneman?
Councillor
Yes.
Hanneman? Any further in favour?
Councillor
Yes.
McInerney, yes.
Yes,
Councillor Edwards?
Langley.
It might be good in this instance to go around the room, and maybe I'll just look at the list and I'll just go through it. Kathy Langley,
Yes.
David, Councillor Edwards,
Yes.
Councillor Penman,
Yes.
Councillor Jackson,
No.
Councillor McInerney,
Yes.
Councillor Goosens,
No.
Councillor Oliver,
No.
Councillor Hanneman,
Yes.
Councillor Mock,
No.
and I'm hoping that Mandy has counted.
5-4.
Yep.
5-4, 5-4, 4 against.
Why? I wasn't counting. 5-4 which way?
Mandy, are you there?
Yep, sorry, Anna. I was, no.
Right.
Can we go again? Sorry.
So you're
Sorry,
on-
those yes, I've got those in favour of the amendment. I've got Councillor Langley, Councillor Penniman, Councillor McInerney, and Councillor Hanneman. Those against the amendment, I have got Councillor Jackson.
What about Councillor Edwards?
Edwards.
You've forgotten Edwards.
Yes. Councillor Edwards was yes.
In favour of the amendment.
Yes.
So 5-4 in favour of.
Yes.
Sorry, it's very difficult doing this online, isn't it?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think it's 5-4 in favour of, so the amendment was put.
Yep.
Carried.
Yep. Yep. Okay.
All right. The amendment is carried, which I'm very disappointed about. And I'll tell you why, because we were putting up this proposal to get government money to make it affordable housing, which we've been working on for quite a while. Now, I don't know whether how many knew that.
Graham.
I should have said it before.
Mr Mayor, you're leading from the chair.
Yes.
Yeah, I know. I'm disappointed.
The amendment
Mayor?
carried and now becomes the motion.
Yes.
So
Yes.
Yep.
we need to put the motion.
Right, now that the amendment becomes the motion, all those in favour?
Yes.
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 No.
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 That's 5-4 again. Anybody change their mind?
Well, if we can just count the no's one by one, thank you.
Jackson.
Goosens.
Oliver.
Mock.
Thank you.
Councillor Hanneman here.
Yes, Councillor Hammond, you want to speak
can we-
again? But I think
No, I'd like to
we'll
call for
debate.
division. Please.
The motion's been carried. So we've got to move on.
No, can I call for a division?
We have a call for a division, so
Yes,
just a
call for
procedural
All
way.
those that are voting yes, you are named and go in the minutes.
Yep.
Councillor Hanneman.
Edwards.
Penniman.
Langley.
McInerney.
That's all the names in. You've got that, Mandy?
Those,
Yes.
Yeah. All right, moving on.
those against.
No, you only have to name that four, don't you?
I need the 4.
Councillor Mock here.
Councillor Mock.
For the sake of clarity and for the sake of this recording, this was a variation between wanting to put it to a meeting in a month or cancelling now. It wasn't a vote necessarily about whether we were going to vote in favour or against the proposal eventually.
Correct.
Your point?
My point is that somebody watching a recording of this might think that those that voted against canning the idea now were in favour of developing Densley Avenue. They may have thought that, and that's not the case. This is merely a case of wanting to stop it now or taking it to a meeting in a month's time.
I'd like to support what Councillor Mock is saying. We weren't necessarily going to be against revoking it, but I would have liked to have had more consultation with them and explained it a bit better and looked at the situation more.
Councillor Oliver, I'd
Oliver,
like to express my disappointment that the amendment was allowed to carry on, seeing it wasn't actual amendment of the original motion.
Yeah, I think you struggle.
What was that, Rocky?
I reiterate what I said before. An amendment is basically words to delete, or the purpose of the amendment is to refine or modify a motion, but not substantially change the intent of the motion or contradict it. So to me, it would have been logical. You would have voted on the first motion. If that got defeated, you could have brought in another motion. I don't think, as I said right at the start, I don't think you can have a motion, that an amendment, which totally contradicts the original motion.
Yeah, you're right. So I've stuffed up, have I?
Well, I agree. I agree that it was out of order. Councillor Mock speaking.
Yeah, thanks, Councillor Mock.
I mean, the decision may well have been the same next month, that it would have been voted out anyway, but I think we haven't given ourselves a chance to get additional information to them or to us. Anyway.
For what it's worth, I think it
Councillor
was a very
Hanneman
poor recommendation in the first place.
Councillor Hanneman here. I would like to ask the question. We were asked to vote on, and now people are saying there's some other information. Why? I make my decisions on my available information at the time. Why weren't we given all this information earlier? Not so that I couldn't explain to the people that are ringing me on the weekend that there was more information. We should have had that in our hand.
Can I interrupt there, Mr. Mayor? Councillor Hanneman, I think if you read the most recent report, it actually highlighted a majority of the issues that were raised by the submissions.
I don't.
Yeah.
You can't be more explicit than that.
Absolutely.
Anna, the CEO, as a CEO, what do you take on this?
Well, we've got a resolution. I think we can only move on now further through the agenda.
Yes.
Yeah.
Just point of order, Mr. Chairman. We've actually moved and carried a recommendation, and we shouldn't be carrying on with this conversation we're having at the moment. We should be actually going on with the agenda.
Yeah, all right. We'll move on.
I've probably got a contrary point of order in that the original motion was amended without it being a true amendment.
Please explain that again and speak a little bit closer to your iPad.
Well, I believe as the mover of the first motion that was seconded, and then an amendment was put forward and accepted without it actually being an amendment. So legally, I don't know that one should have been accepted.
Yeah,
I'm not entirely sure how else we could have dealt with it procedurally, but I take that on board. I think we do have a resolution now, and we need to move on. I think the resolution that we have is indicative of the council's thoughts on the matter. So I think we should move on with the agenda.
All right, thanks, CEO. Item 17, reports of Officer for Information, and that is the Chief Executive Officer. And 17.2, strategic plan, quarterly updates. That's for information. And where are we up to? Director of Corporate and Community Service Meeting and Events. That's for information. Director of Infrastructure and Operations, Meetings and Events. Do you want to speak to anything, Aaron?
Not to the meeting and event, no.
All right. So now we're down to work updates. Do you want to say anything there, or do we?
Yeah. Yes. Yes. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, just a couple of comments on the works update. Obviously, with the COVID-19 issue, we continue on reasonably uninterrupted with our works, so our construction program, except for Bruce Avenue. Obviously, it's been discussed in the past. However, just based on the time frame we've got now and the risk of staff resourcing going forward, we don't want to be starting that job and hit the winter wet weather. So it's been proposed to defer that. There's also a risk to the footpath projects in Bordertown. So that's the two footpaths from Woolshed Street across to the Recreation Lake and from Palmer Park through to the Wildlife Park. We're seeking approval to create the pedestrian crossings across the railway line. We're still working with ARTC on that approval. Thirdly, Ross Avenue footpath up at Keith. The footpath's been designed and comments from residents has been sought. We've received some unsupportive comments. So we're collating that information, also just looking at the design as well, and we'll provide you with some feedback on that at next council meeting. So happy to answer any questions based on the works update.
Councillor Mock.
Councillor Mock.
On page 197 of the agenda, there's a picture I'd like you to scroll to. Page 197.
Councillor Hanneman here, could we get that, everyone could get that picture, please?
Yeah, it's in your agenda.
Righto. Righto.
Yep.
So the bike track, stroke walking track along the Canawidga Road, it's quite a scenic area, and there are possibly 5 water crossings. I'm thinking rather than have a box culvert set up on all 5, that we have in 2 of the best spots, have a more artistic bridge. Now, I know box culverts are expensive and bridges are slightly more expensive, but there might be some local labour art in these times that would be available for that process.
Yeah, I can comment on that. We've already ordered the box culverts. However, we could put them in temporarily, and if we wanted to go down that path, it's something we could pursue. Because you could always reuse the box culverts elsewhere.
I wasn't sure, Mr. Mayor, whether they were going to be concreted in, but that's probably a good suggestion anyway. Whether we can go out to some sort of consultation on this, like for design, I mean.
Yeah, it's certainly a possibility. The thing we would lose on would be the labour, obviously, to install them and then remove them afterwards. But that wouldn't be a huge component of the cost.
Thank you for considering it.
Yep.
Anything further to Aaron on that? Or anything?
Councillor Hanneman here again.
Yep.
Can I just support Councillor Mock in that idea? And I think that's a great idea, and I'd like them to pursue it a bit better. I think there's some great alternatives to cement box culverts, and that area poses a great opportunity to have prettier ones or more used to it, fits in with the environment.
Anything further?
No.
If not, we are now moving on to
the casseroles in the oven already, so. Righto.
the development activity. Is that right? No, meeting the development DDS ES meeting events attended. And development activity. Late items.
Councillor Hanneman here again.
Hanneman.
I just noticed somewhere, and I can't quite pull it up, is we've got quite an expense for the John Deere tractor. Just asking Aaron, how many hours did that do? We spent a lot of money on it last time. Now it's reoccurred. Have we spoken to John Deere about letting them know that it's failed again?
My understanding, yes, it's only done about 4,000 hours, is my understanding. I believe John Deere were the ones that gave us the price to replace the transmission.
How much did we spend on it last time? Is this exactly what they repaired last time, and and it's failed again?
I can't answer that. I have to take that on notice. We're looking at all the different options. Should we repair it? What sort of trade-in will we get in its current condition? All those things which we can come back to council or the plant machinery committee to make a decision on.
Yeah, I would like to know that, because in my own business, if I'd spent that amount of money, I think that I'd be talking to John Deere harder than obviously we are.
Yeah, I can follow up. I'm not even 100% sure when we had the original transmission issues. I have to look that up in our system.
Thank you.
Any further questions before we go into confidence?
Just one last question. I had a ratepayer asked me about the drought funding. What's happening with that?
Do you want me to answer that, Mr. Mayor?
Yes, all right. Thanks, Rocky.
Only reason I am because Tracy just sent an email through late this afternoon, and this apparently all the applications have been assessed, and there will be announcements hopefully as early as next week.
Thank you.
Any further before we go into confidence?
Just one further question to Rocky. The containers that are in Handyside Terrace, I've had a couple of ratepayers phone me today. They are being cleaned out, and they were told that people are soon shifting into them. Now, they haven't had anything more done to them since they were put on that block. Have you heard anything more about it?
No, through you, Mr. Mayor. No, well, they certainly won't be shifting them. The site hasn't been completed as it's supposed to be in accordance with their development approval. So I will follow that up. I actually drove past it myself yesterday, and they're certainly not habitable at the moment.
No. Well,
and the containers that are there are destroying, because I suspect the builders on that site are also upgrading that dwelling that's alongside.
Oh, right.
That was
right. We've got to remember this is still being recorded.
Yep.
Yep.
Some of these questions that are coming in now should be going straight to the relevant directors, and would save coming through council meeting.
Well, fair comment, but I've tried to get Rocky today about that, so I just took the opportunity now.
Right. We need to go into confidence now because we've got a couple of confidential items. So would somebody like to move that we go into confidence?
Councillor McInerney, so moved.
I'll second it. Councillor
Seconded
Hanneman.
by Councillor Hanneman. All those in favour?
Yes.
Against, that's carried. Now, it's over to the relevant person, I suppose. It's Anna, it's you, is it? How do we go into conference?
Mr Mayor, can I just share a conflict of interest, so I'll vacate the meeting.
Yeah, thanks, Rocky.